Woo! It's been a hell of a morning. Come on, you've got to give me something. I've been here for hours and I've literally been working my behind off. That's it, keep clapping. Make some noise. All right? Okay? All right, now listen. Welcome to the BFI. This is Future Film Labs. My name is Yari, and today we've got a jam-packed day focusing on pre-production. Now, pre-production covers a wide... we're doing post-production. We've done pre-production, all right? We've done pre-production, and pre-production is really important, all right? But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're doing post-production today, all right? And post-production, whilst it covers a wide range of different things, we've decided to go deep on VFX because we felt like it was the one that was the most mysterious and hardest to find out stuff about. So we've kind of gathered an awesome panel to help us demystify that. Before we get into all of that, a couple of things that we should know. Okay, so the format of today, we're going to have a Q&A here. At the end of this Q&A, we're going to get a chance to meet and look at this month's Hive short of the month. After that, we'll take a break. When we come back from the break, we're going to do a VFX workshop. What's a VFX workshop? You'll have to come back at 2 to find out. After that, at 3 o'clock, we're going to go up to the Blue Room where we're going to have drinks. But not only are we going to have drinks, okay? You'll be able to talk to the guys from Euroscript to get help with your script. But that's not all. You could talk to the guys from Livetree to talk about funding your next project, but that's not all. All right? You could talk to the guys from Backstage about crewing up and casting your next project, but that's not all. All right? We've also got Escape Technologies putting a bunch of state-of-the-art VFX workstations into the Blue Room as we speak, and we'll have a bunch of VFX artists, including some of these guys, to help you see what things like Maya and Flame and other tools that these guys use actually look like and how they work. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, stay with us for the whole day, all right? Don't forget, while you're here, if you take your Future Film Labs ticket to the store, you can get a 10% discount. Today, if you go to the box office and you want to grab a ticket for next month's event, which is all about distribution, you can grab a ticket for half price, but it's only for you special guys that showed up today, and it's only for today, all right? So make sure you do that if you want to be here for next month. And finally, don't forget to check out the MediaTek. Right now, though, we've got to get on with today's event, all right? And we gathered together a stellar cast, a galaxy of VFX stars to be part of our panel today. So listen, guys, come and join me and we'll introduce everybody when we get on stage. All right, come and take a seat. Sorry. Thank you. Good Lord. Also, take a seat, everyone. Okay. All right. So, we're a seat short. Thanks, that's your fault. Okay, all right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to meet our panel right now while somebody kind of finds me a chair, all right? I'm going to stand here like this for an hour. Oh.
Should I sit down?
No, I don't. Okay, so at the far end, ladies and gentlemen, this is Andrew Brassington. Andrew works for Escape Studios and is head of training, essentially.
Head of strategic projects.
Strategic
which
projects.
Doesn't mean anything, but I work in the training field and we train young people to become visual effects, 3D and 2D visual effects artists and animators as well. So if anyone's interested in that, then I can talk to you a bit more about that sort of stuff.
So George Rockliffe is here. George works at the Mill. Tell them about what you do, George.
So I'm a flame artist at the Mill. So at the Mill we're obviously predominantly more commercial based as opposed to film based, but still do short film and music video stuff. So visual effects artist working at the Mill. Been there for a couple of years.
Roy is here. Roy, tell us about what you do, Roy.
My name is Roy. I'm a digital compositor at Invisible. We work on films, TV series, invisible magic.
All right. Clement's here with us as well. Clement, tell us about what you do.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit hybrid. I started behind the camera 18 years ago. It's a long time ago now. 11 years behind the camera, doing a bit of Harry Potter, Mission Impossible, and then doing a lot of green screen. I realized that there was something else happening on the other side, so I switched to visual effects, and I'm teaching VFX now as well.
Okay, finally, last but not by no means least, Haz, tell us a little bit about what you've been up to.
Hi everyone, I'm Haz, and I'm a filmmaker. So I'm currently in post on my second feature. My first feature comes out in January. my background is visual effects. I've worked on features like Dark Knight and Narnia, and I worked on TV series like Poldark. So visual effects was like my film school before I became a filmmaker.
Okay, awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, give our a panel a round of applause. Thanks so much. All right, so essentially, what I really wanted to do to start off today was kind of get an idea of each of your kind of journeys. There's a lot of us, right? So, like, we need the potted history, not the full Andrew Brassington 6-page dissertation, all right? But basically, tell us a little bit about how you kind of came to be doing the thing that you do, and help us understand what it is that you what it means, what you do, okay? Does that make sense? That was nearly a sentence in English.
Yeah.
All right? So, yeah, so tell us about how you got to where you got to and what it is that you do. And look, here's a chair. Look at that. Wow.
I'll start
I
then.
feel super special now.
Shall I start?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so my background is not really, was never in filmmaking, so this might be inspiring for some people who are a bit unsure of where they stand in this field, and I think it's important to remember that people can come at this from all different angles, okay? I studied like an academic degree at a normal university, you know? And so if there's anyone sitting out there now who's doing like an English degree or a history degree or a geography degree and thinks, oh, but I want to be a filmmaker, what I would say is, yes, there's still lots of ways in. I basically, to be very brief, is I changed my career when I was about 29, and I got a job as a runner, and then I just kind of bounced around doing different things, ended up working with a group of guys where we had our own little production company making music videos, where I started to learn more and more about visual effects and what you can do with visual effects, and then from there I went to Escape Studios, and that's where I am now. So what I would say is, you know, it's a lifelong journey of learning, of which I have a lot to learn, you know, a lot to learn, more than most of these guys actually, and that's it really. I'll stop at that, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
no, please.
My journey was a bit more kind of, I guess what you'd say, traditional. I knew at A-level age that what I wanted to do was be in filmmaking of some sort and behind the scenes. I had no interest in being in front of anything. So,
Who here is on the A levels? Who's doing A levels at the? Okay, all right. Just so you know.
yeah, okay. So even at that age, I was like, I kind of want to do it, but I didn't know what any of it was. We're all so used to consuming so much video, especially these days with, you know, YouTube's such a big part of the media we consume, but I didn't know how any of that stuff was made. So media studies at A-level was my first insight. Then I went to university and did the same thing. But then when I came out, I had to go right to the bottom of the pack, get a runner's job, and then figure out what area I wanted to get into. Because actually, once you get into it, you see there's so many different avenues. So you're right, you can come into the industry from so many different angles. But once you're in, you can also approach the industry in so many different ways as well. And I then found my feet and started doing visual effects with After Effects, which many of you will probably know, and then moved into Flame a couple of years later. So I've been doing that for about 5 years now. So.
And so for those of us that are not fully conversant with VFX kind of lingo, what's Flame?
Yeah. Stop us, by the way, if we start giving this post-production particularly is like a foreign language, isn't it, sometimes? There's
Foreign names.
Yeah, there's so many different things. So Flame, for me, when I tell my mum I do Flame, she thinks that I make all the flames on TV, which is not true at all. Compositing, where you take two elements and put them together, make them look like they belong together in a scene, whether or not that's removing something from the scene or adding something to the scene, I do that in a piece of software called Flame. And we sit there in a suite, me, the director and producer, and we'll spend, 2 hours, 2 days, 2 months, whatever the budget and time is, to get the shot of the film looking right. So that's
what Flame.
That's a basic thing of what Flame does.
All right, Roy, tell us about what you're doing, your journey.
For me, it really started from knowing that I want to work on films. Coming from Israel, I studied the After Effects and 3ds Max. From there, I just knew that my way to approach this industry is to learn Nuke and to get like a proper school, like Escape Studio really helped me.
Nuke being another platform.
Yeah.
Like Flame. It's a software.
Yeah, it's another software. Very similar to After Effects, but just on a different node system. From there on, trying to get a good role and a good job in the industry, I created a short film, VFX Games. That's I guess what put me in this panel. We got a lot of recognition in the industry. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that, and I saw that. It was actually, I think it was Simon Devereaux from the Mill. He showed us all that. That's very cool. Clement, tell us a little bit about your journey.
I wanted to be a film director. I still want to be a film director, by the way.
Do you know what I mean? Talk to Haz.
And my mum and dad say, well, but that's not a job, so you have to find something else. I said, well, I want to work in the film industry. I want to tell stories, so it's not a job. So try to find something in the film industry where you can make a living. So I just look around, and I realized that there were people like that behind camera. And apparently they were making a living out of it. You guys are making a living out of it?
Yeah. No, not these guys.
Okay, not these guys, maybe,
but they will
you
be.
can, basically. And I managed to do that for, again, as I said, 11 years. And then 11 years later, I realized that I was still not a film director. So I thought, well, I should look a bit further.
Sure.
Further was indeed behind the green screen. So if you've seen the behind the scenes, you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of curtains, and they turn out to be green for some reason. And I wanted to know why they were green, so I looked behind and I found these kind of people behind doing VFX, visual effects, with flames and nuke and pyrotechnics like that. So that's the journey, really.
Sure.
Yeah, so I started working on sort of the other side.
Yeah, okay. And for you, Haz, I kind of know a lot of this, but I feel like you should tell it.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the cut-down version.
Okay.
I think I've got it.
Okay.
So, okay, I started off having an interest in film ever since I was like 12. So I saw a film called Blade Runner. I don't know if you guys know the film Blade Runner. Not the new one, but the old one.
The original one.
The original one.
The one before the director's cut, that one.
Yeah, that one. So I remember seeing that. That was on VHS, so that kind of shows my age a bit. And I remember saying, holy crap, this is amazing. I don't know what's involved, but I want to be involved in doing that. And then flash forward to like college, university. I wanted to do art, I was very creative, but my parents are very traditional. Being the oldest in the family, they're like, you got to lead the example. You can't go doing art and design, like, how are you going to get a job? Kind of similar to like what your parents were saying.
Do we have the same parents? I didn't know.
I do.
Did you know?
We should talk about that.
Yeah.
So I kind of had a middle ground compromise. So I picked computer science, which involved programming. I did design and tech because my dad came from an engineering background and goes, oh yeah, you can do product design. Yeah, I get that. And I tried maths. I sucked at it badly. But I did that as a compromise. And what was interesting is I was able to do my final year project in computer science by making a video game. So I kind of like got the best of both worlds. And it was that got me into video games cinematics. So when you play a game and you have the opening sequence showing like the
cutscenes.
The cutscenes, yeah. Back in the day, they used to be called FMV, full motion video. So that's on platforms like PlayStation 1, Dreamcast, all those old consoles.
Wow.
Yeah, that's old. But there wasn't really a route for like film school, or if there was, I couldn't afford to get into those things. So I used video games as a way for me to kind of like start my storytelling process.
Sure.
So like moving virtual cameras around, lighting, doing 3D modeling, doing basic compositing. And then it was only like, several years later, I decided I'm just going to do what I was supposed to do, and that is move into film. So I became a compositor. So I worked in, at places like MPC, and started off as a roto artist. For those that don't know what rotoscoping is, it's where you cut out every single frame or every 10 frames so that you can put things behind that person. Very, very tedious, but very good grounding to becoming a visual effects artist. And then flash forward several years later, I became a visual effects supervisor, which is more managing the visual effects process with the client. And then I became a filmmaker. So there you go.
Yeah, so it kind of has made tell them about making the film, because that's gonna be a big part of later in the day. So tell them about tell them about making film.
Well, I started off making short films. So while I was working in visual effects, in my spare time, and trust me, you don't get many spare time when you're working in visual effects, especially on the bigger movies, we all know. I was just shooting stuff. I was just using whatever resources I had, and as a compositor, I was just shooting different sort of footage and putting them together to tell stories. And one of my short films went viral in 2014, a film called Project Kronos. and that it was just good timing because everyone wanted science fiction. You know, Gravity had come out and won loads of awards. Interstellar was in production. Yeah. So I was getting phone calls from agents in the US going, "Who are you? Like, can you come for a meeting? Can we do lunch?" And they assume I was American, by the way, because all the films that I was doing had that very Michael Bay-esque polish to it, and because I grew up watching those sort of movies. So they were surprised. "Oh, you're a British dude. Okay, so we can't do lunch." And then and I went to LA afterwards. Yeah, some chips. Then I did a couple of more short films, and then through my manager, through my agent, LA, they go, "Look, you should go and make a feature." And so my first feature is called The Beyond, and I'll explain a bit more later on about how hard it is to make a feature. It's very hard. It is extremely hard. So I end up becoming a producer, which is like part financing the film, because no one will give you a dime or a penny to make your film, because it's risky. Doesn't matter how many awards you've won, how many short films you've done, how many accolades you've got. When it comes to making a feature film, you're still a first-time filmmaker. And I learned that very, very quick. Yeah. So my first one was self-financed, and eventually some producers came on and helped me finish it. And that took about a year. And that used every single skill I learned in visual effects, in production, working with people. Filmmaking is all about people. Same thing in visual effects. Even in music, any craft in the film industry is collaborative. But yeah, I'll go in more detail, but it was very hard.
All right. So, I mean, there's a couple of different routes that we can take this discussion, and I suppose you guys can get to kind of decide, really. It's like one of those choose your own adventure books, right? Okay, so we can talk a lot more about, that entry level and the sorts of things that you can do to kind of get into VFX jobs, if that's what you'd like to hear about. Or we can talk about using VFX to help tell your stories, all right? So you've got option 1 or option 2. Show of hands. Who wants to hear more about option 1? Oh, no hands. Who wants to hear more about option 2? All right. There you go. I think we've got a lot of filmmakers in the house. All right. You got the question already. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like you're kind of encroaching on my space. Do you see what I mean? Okay, go. Yeah, go on. You tell me the question, and then I'll say it so everybody at home can hear it. Tell me, what did you want to ask?
If start as a runner is really the way to start.
Okay.
I never believed so much in this, but both Andrew and George, you start like that.
Okay.
Now I start to think, oh, maybe it is.
Okay, all right. It's a good question, and before we move on, all right. So, do you think that starting as a runner, would you offer that advice to a young person trying to get into this business?
I personally would. I think it's the best. I started as a runner when I was 29 years old, right? I'd been doing a proper job,
Were you really a runner, or were you more like a light jogger by that point?
I was.
Do you know what I mean?
Was probably
it was more like a swift walker.
Speed walker. Yeah, I was, and I was running around getting tea and coffee for people. And on my first ever job, someone mistook me for the producer, which was quite funny, because I'm quite big, aren't I? And people thought, oh, the big guy, he's in charge, It's like, no, I'm the runner. But the point is, you should never ever look down your nose at a runner's position or being a runner or other runners, because it's a pivotal part of any production. Anyone will tell you that. And they're as important to the whole production team as anyone else, really, in many ways, A runner doing their job and doing something right at the right time can make or break something. Yeah. And I also think a lot of people who have started as runners, who work in the industry, have that respect for young people who do it as well. Yeah. And that's one thing. And the other thing is you meet loads of people. You meet everybody. Whether it's the camera department or it depends on what you're running on, but you meet lots of people.
I think the key thing about being a runner is to concentrate. If you get a job as a runner, concentrate on being the best runner you can be.
Absolutely.
Don't get spend all your time going, hey, yeah, and I'm just running now, but I want to be a director. Actually concentrate on doing the job in front of you. If you want it to lead to the next thing, then do that job to the absolute best of your ability. That's what will convince people that maybe you're ready for something a little bit more.
I think as a working environment, visual effects and post-production is very, very intense. It's a tight deadline-driven environment. And when you're in a team, whether that's like the visual effects supervisor all the way down to the runner and everyone in between, you all have to give 100%, because as filmmakers, it's dependent on everyone pulling their weight to make sure that the client and the film ends up exactly where they need it. And it might sound silly, but if clients have to wait an hour for their lunch, or if the kit isn't in the right place, people start to get wound up, and then it kind of the team starts to fray. I think being a runner is one of the most important things because it kind of holds everyone together. It's also a really good opportunity, like you say, to kind of meet people and kind of see what's out there. The job I do today, I didn't even know it existed until I'd been working in the industry for a year. And that's because I had this perception of how films were made and who does them. And then it's not until you meet someone and they go, look at this, and you go, wow, that's cool. I have no idea how to do that, but what is it? And then you kind of sit and you chat and you learn, and you're also in that space looking at real life stuff, and you can see how it develops. And I think it's such a big learning process, both like professionally and also personally. You get to meet so many people and do so much. I think, 100% behind it.
Okay.
Yes, the pay's terrible.
Do you feel like that's kind of answered your question?
But
Good,
s-
because
but, you should still
everybody
get
else
paid.
wants something else, and we're doing this just for you. If anybody's unhappy with what's going on, it's her fault.
But you should still get paid. That's one thing I would say, yeah?
All right.
100%.
Still get paid.
Yeah.
You might not be very good money, but you should still get paid. I don't think anyone should ever do anything. Actually, we haven't talked about.
Whoa. Slow your roll, player.
But you shouldn't. I don't think you should work for free.
You know what I mean? I've got a bunch of volunteers on this event. You need to calm right
Can
down.
I just say one other thing very
Sure.
quickly? Because if we're not going to talk about the first thing, the first track, one thing that I thought was common amongst everybody on here was this idea that, especially because I'm a little bit older, you might not have noticed than most, but in terms of that idea of what your parents think or what greater society thinks about this idea, it's not a real job. I don't think maybe none of us here ever thought with confidence that you could say, yeah, working in the film industry, doing whatever it is that you do is a real job, in the way that being a doctor is a real job, or being a dentist is a real job, isn't it? And being a teacher or working in a factory, you know. And so I think that's something really important. And you should, if you only go away with one thing today, from my point of view, is to understand that there are loads of jobs that you can do in post-production, visual effects, and across the whole film industry, and they are open to every single person in this room, I would say. So
Yeah. I think the thing to be aware of is that people who are really good at this stuff make it look really easy. Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing. If you think that, like, okay, film or visual effects or anything, it looks really straightforward. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, that's not a reason to do it. If you feel like I want to do this job because it sounds like it's not a real job, it's easier than other jobs, then you're kidding yourself.
Can I add as well that one of the hardest lessons I had to learn when I first came into the industry is, like, as a young kind of ambitious creative person, you kind of want to jump in and go, give it to me. Like, I want to do it, I want to get my hands on all of it, and I want to get involved in everything. And the first thing you've got to think to yourself is, what do I really want to do? And then also look at the people that are doing the jobs that you want to do. Actually, they're going to be a lot older than you. There is a real kind of, there's a progression and education that you need to have, and that does take time, and it's really hard. It's a bitter pill to swallow to kind of go, okay, I'm going to get into this and I want to be a part of these fantastic productions, but you can't beat yourself up if you're not doing the job you want to do straight off the bat. Because
Then can I quickly add on top of George?
Please.
As well, as a follow-up. I wasn't a runner. I didn't start off as a runner, but I've worked with some of the best producers in the industry today, and they all start off as runners. And it's exactly true what you said about, like, I remember this story really quickly, the story where this client was treating this runner, like, really bad. Like, go get my coffee. No, it's wrong. Do it again. Like, really bad. It shouldn't even treat anyone like that, whether you're a runner or not, right? Flash forward 5 years, and it's a small industry, by the way, so you are going to meet the people, 'cause especially if you work in Soho. You know, when you leave one company, you're going next door, literally. You're going to see everyone at lunches. So it's very small. Even worldwide, it's very incestuous. Everyone knows everyone. And that client is, he's still a commercials director. And this runner became a really good commercial producer at a really, really good agency, like one of the best top ad agencies. And I remember, like, being at the agency, and the producer told me the story, and this director was there, and you should see in the face, the director's face, like, it's karma. Yeah. So it's karma. And the last thing I want to say also is, whether you're a runner, whether you're a junior compositor, artist, whatever, right up to being management, there's one key word you should always remember, and that's responsibility. So when you're a runner, you are responsible for whatever task you're given. That same level of responsibility carries on to when you're becoming an artist, when you're given a shot to do. Whether you're doing a task for the shot, you're responsible, and you've got to take responsibility. And that's
Own it.
You've got to own it,
Gotta own it.
regardless what the task is. And of course, everyone wants to get to this, whether you want to be a superstar visual effects artist or you want to be a director or a musician, whatever it is, whatever you do, own it. It's very important. Don't say, I'm not going to own it till I've reached that level. That's really bad.
You have to
thing.
practice owning it. And you have to do it every day.
Yeah,
You
and
can't.
people recognize you for it as well. People will recognize you for it.
Even if you make the best cup of tea.
Totally.
Even if it's that, do you see what I mean? That I'm not just going to make tea. I'm going to become a chaiwala.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? I'm going to be like the tea ninja.
You just took it to another level, didn't
Do you see what I mean? It's that guy that gets noticed.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's not the one like you said earlier that goes, oh, I've been on the car park parking cars for 2 days now. When am I going to get a job on the set? That person is like, get lost. Literally, it's the person that just does it over and over
understands that, like, if everybody's car doesn't get into the car park, the job doesn't get done.
Exactly.
That understands that even though it doesn't feel like it's part of the whole thing can't happen without it.
Exactly.
Do you see what I mean?
Exactly. And then you get approached.
Yeah.
Someone comes up to you and goes, "You've done a great. What's your name, by the way?
Yeah.
And then you get that. Then that conversation happens. That's my advice.
All right. Well, look, let's talk about using VFX to enhance our storytelling, because that's what we want, right? Yeah, that's what everybody wants to do. So just as a show of hands, right, how many filmmakers have we got in the house? People who are working on their own projects want to stick a little bit of VFX magic on that. Do you know what I mean? Oh, right, the hands went down. Oh, right, interesting. So what is it with the VFX thing? Is it just like, oh, it just looks a bit hard? Or it's just like, are you thinking, you know what? I'm tired of all this CGI stuff. Do you know what I mean? What is it? What's going on? Tell me. Does it just feel a little bit hard to do the VFX stuff? Okay.
Maybe it's worse.
Can I ask you a quick question? Actually?
Go on.
Quick, can we do quick shows of hands?
Shows of hands, go
Okay.
on.
Who knows what Maya is as a software?
Maya
Maya.
is the girl who went to college with my wife. They were best mates in their teens.
Lovely, yeah.
Yeah,
How is
no,
she?
that's entirely true.
Is she all good?
Yeah, she's all right. She's all right now.
It's a pre-Columbian civilization.
As well,
Yeah,
the
Mayans.
Lions. Right.
Who's used Maya then?
Who's used Maya? All right, there's a couple of hands at the back
Okay.
and a sprinkling.
Who knows Nuke?
Nuke.
Who's used Nuke?
All right.
Who's used After Effects?
Anybody who's used Nuke, as long as your name is not Donald Trump, I'm happy. All right. After Effects, hands up. There. Let's have a look.
Okay, Cinema 4D,
Cinema 4D.
Blender.
Blender.
Okay, so this is what I expected. Most people have used After Effects, right? And you can do a lot of bits and pieces, but the softwares that we're going to talk about, these guys mainly today, is Maya for 3D and animation, all of the kind of modeling and explosions and the particle effects and all that kind of stuff, maybe a bit of Houdini as well. But then Nuke for the compositors, of which we have a lot actually on this panel. And those are the two softwares that I would definitely recommend that you start thinking about a bit more and try to use. And the demo's upstairs later, you'll have a chance to see that. So
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So let's have a think about actually using VFX to kind of in storytelling, okay? And yeah, like, where's that? All right. So let's. Do you know what? Before we do that, actually, all right, I want people to kind of get an idea of some of the stuff that's possible. Clement, do you mind if we show your show reel at this point? Just because it's a great example of kind of what you can do with this sort of stuff. Is that all right with everybody? Just to take a look at this, all right? So, like, Mike, do you mind showing us Clement's show reel? Yeah, there you go. Everybody say hello to Mike. He's our projectionist for the day. Say hello, Mike.
Bye, Mike.
There you go. You know what I mean? He's the top dude. So the thing that people really want to know is how to kind of use VFX to enhance our storytelling. Okay, now there are lots of different things that we're using VFX for. There's things like all the removal stuff, or the compositing stuff where we put one thing, we put a person and put them in a new environment or something like that, or things where we extend or build the world out and everything. So talk to me about how we can start at that writing process, starting to think about how to kind of take advantage of the tools and working that into what we're actually doing.
Clement, I think you should explain as well that on that reel there's a lot of visual effects, right?
Yeah,
You know?
because you could go, well, they are the ones you can see, which are a bit obvious. I think you have like two categories of VFX. You have the one you can see in your face, dragon stuff, you haven't seen any dragons there, and the one you can't. So indeed, there are quite a few stuff that you can't see. These are my favorite, basically, the VFX that serve the purpose. And the way you started, actually, the question, it's a good way because you link to storytelling.
Yeah.
And a lot of people raise when you ask, who's filmmaker, who's director, wants to be a director. We all want to be director, essentially. Yeah. Let's be honest.
Everyone wants to be in charge.
Yeah. But for me, just as a start, I think it's important to keep in mind that no technology is a substitute for substance, right? Look at social media. It's hollow and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay?
Ooh.
That's contentious.
All right,
But,
don't worry. The CEO of Twitter's not here, so we'll be all right.
But for me, that's the fundamental. Because if you're in love with the tool and the technique, you're dead, in my view, from a storytelling point of view. It has to serve the story,
Sure.
not the other way around. And we've seen for the last 20 years a lot of blockbuster. You mentioned Michael Bay, is that,
Yeah.
where the selling point is the VFX, and that doesn't work at all because now they're completely flat. They run out of idea because there was none from the start. There was no idea, and the thing also is that there's been a period where the VFX were in their infancy. They were trying to find their way, getting better, trying to find new things and stuff. Yeah. This is done. We've reached the plateau. So now essentially, it's agreed that we can do whatever we want. Essentially, so. Back to the essential. There is no limit to what you can do with the VFX. There's no limit to the imagination, but you need the imagination nonetheless. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you can't just do a shot. There was a point in which you could just it was enough to show a very cool effect. Show a very cool effect that no one had done before. It was enough just to do that, and you could get away. That would cover you. Yeah. But at this point now,
not anymore.
Where you can pretty much, if you can think it up, you can pretty much make it happen. Yeah. So then it's more of a case now, why?
Yeah.
And all of that's to do with story.
Yeah, there's story, and what Clement said is like 1,000% accurate. I've now done 2 films, and I can say it is all about the story. It really isn't about how flashy your film is. But touching on that, yes, we can do whatever the imagination allows us to do. But there is also the dreaded word of budget. And as filmmakers, yes, you tell stories. You want to get your imagination onto the screen to share your stories with the audience. Of course, that's the job of filmmaking. But there is also the budget and resources. And I see every week or every month I look at short films, and there are some really good ones and some really interesting ones. And the interesting ones are the ones that try to make a Transformers for like £5, and it damages the idea of the story. Sure. And you just look at it and go, oh, this is really bad. Like they were clearly influenced by Transformers or something. They got big robots, but the matte edges aren't right, the tracking isn't right, and they just put it in there because they think, oh, I've got a robot in my film, that's going to get loads of views. And it's a shame because then if you look at the underlying story they're trying to tell, it's actually a really cool story, but I was put off within 10 seconds because it was a badly done visual effects. So understand how much money you have, what resources you have, to do this, whether it's, when I say resources, I'm talking about, whether you have access to Maya, whether you have any knowledge of Maya, Nuke, or whatever tool you want to use. If you don't, do you know anyone that is a good 3D modeler or who's an aspiring compositor? Team up with them, but understand what your limits are. My best work has come out basically by understanding my restrictions and having to think outside the box to accommodate that. And it's very important to think of that as well.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk.
No VFX better than bad VFX like Brexit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay. Let's. Woo. Do you know what I mean? Let's took a turn somewhere where I'm uncomfortable to go. All right. So let's talk about like what are the things that we can do, and how do we start to kind of incorporate? You know, we're thinking, okay, like, you know, has anybody got loads and loads of money to spend on the film they're working on at the moment? No. Okay. Right. So we're all working to kind of super tight budgets, yeah. Right, and kind of trying to get things off mates and all of that sort of stuff. So talk to me about what we can get done on these sorts of low budgets, and how do we think about, you know. So for instance, this I said to you guys, I said to each of you, I need you to bring me like a short film. I need to have some VFX in it, but I'm not going to give you any money to do it, and you have to do it. So you've got no choice. So talk to me about how you would actually kind of go about solving the problems of kind of creating VFX on a kind of a low budget, and what would start driving your thought processes?
I come to Escape Studios and try and team up with some of our young artists who are just finishing their course and probably looking to hook up with young directors as well, and then try to come to some sort of arrangement with them, because those guys know how to use the kit, and I think that, you know, when you get together with those guys, you can blow each other's minds. You know, you've got the stories and they've got the technical skills, so that's definitely a good place to start.
We're going to meet some of these guys.
Yeah, they're upstairs later. Some of them are. But all I would say, that's a little bit of a plug as well for Escape Studios, obviously.
Really?
But you know, but really,
right over my head, that one.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing to bear in mind, I think a lot of people think that visual effects is just like superhero movies and you know, like films in space and, you know, sci-fi. But there are so many like normal everyday films where you can just use a few small visual effects techniques, normally compositing stuff or actually painting stuff out, getting rid of stuff, which can really lend a lot to your storytelling. And actually you can do some quite funny little tricks, if you like, with the compositing tools. And so I would urge people to, what I would say is, try to think of some of the different techniques that are available to a filmmaker, and then just practice with them. You know, make one film where you're just using one technique, and then do another film and use a different technique, and then a short film that is, or just a sequence, or just a few shots, and then all of a sudden you're kind of building up a bit of an armory of like, oh, I know how to do this, I know how to do that, and then when you come to make your feature film, then you have a lot of experience already of using all of the small techniques, if that makes sense.
That's a great idea, but alongside the runner thing, because since you guys were runner, you know, the tools that we can access now, you can film on an iPhone and stuff, create 4K images. So I would say runner is not enough. These days you have to do it, try it, create it, keep shooting, filming, and tweak. You know, you can
and never tell yourself that you need like a certain camera or a certain laptop or a certain bit of kit until you get started. Yeah. Because guess what? The stuff that any of us in this room have access to in our pockets is far more powerful than they had in the industry what, 30, 40 years ago?
Absolutely.
And it's just like the power that we've all got, we're so used to having it that we kind of forget it as an option. But you are able to do exactly what you're saying, like develop techniques and realize problems as well. As filmmakers, you don't realize tougher problems until later down the line. So if you stumble into those through your own kind of creativity, then guess what? That's like another little bit of experience and a little bit more understanding for your next production.
There is no excuse to actually not make a film. I mean, like you said, George, I mean, we have it in our pockets. We can film stuff. You don't need to have huge, massive crews and big, massive Arri Alexa cameras and big, massive lenses. If you don't have the money, you don't need to. You know, we're talking about storytelling here. And there are a lot of different types of visual effects you can do. You can do things called in-camera effects, you know, using optical illusion, you know, forced perspective. For those who don't know what forced perspective stuff is, like if I wanted this glass to appear bigger in front of a character, I'll position it in a certain way and place my camera in a certain way. Then this makes it look like it's a giant glass in front of my character. And there's no computers involved in that. I mean, that's kind of old school. But these are techniques, like Andrew's saying, they're just techniques. But really, there is no excuse for you guys not to make a film. So.
But that's what's really interesting is that the most effective kind of filmmaking in this area is blending all of these different techniques. It's taking a little, blending something that's computer generated with something that's real, with a bit of kind of in-camera trickery and then using the kind of production design. It's bringing all of the tools and blending them together to kind of create the whole overall magical effect, right? That kind of fools people, that kind of convinces them that what they're seeing is real or plausible and allows them to suspend that disbelief. So let's think a lot about the sorts of things that you guys would, where are the opportunities? What are the sorts of things that you guys, thinking about, like working super low budget and the tools that are kind of more immediately available? What are the things that you think are really possible?
In my case, I can say that I worked on short film, 3 minutes, super low budget.
Yeah.
I had no job at the time.
Yeah.
Didn't even get my first job in the industry. But once I did start and met the right people, let's say I feel like in the first 6 months coming here to London, I met all the right people. Photographer who wants to progress in the industry
Sure.
and make his name better. I was a 2D artist. I wanted to make my name reach to so many people. 3D artist, a match mover, all are in the start of their, I guess, progression.
Yeah.
And each individual has his own speciality
Sure.
that he can show and he will want, and he saw the potential of a good idea and how it could get far. And really, don't be shy to ask.
Yeah.
Because I got like sponsorship from people because they just saw a good idea
Yeah.
and how it could get far. I got like a 3D model, a really good one for free.
Yeah.
Sound effects, all this kind of stuff. So it's just, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
I want to follow up with Roy actually, because that's a very good point you brought up about things like sponsorship and thinking outside the box. Talking to people that that are also hungry like yourself. So I did a short film about 2 years ago called Sync, which is about this robot that goes around delivering packages. And Roy, you worked on that, I remember.
I was an extra as well.
And he was an extra in the film. Actually, yeah, you made the cut. And I remember approaching Escape, and I approached Andy over there and go, listen, I've got this story. I remember Andy saying, what is your story? It's not just like, how many visual effects shots it is, or what is the story? And I told him the story. It's very relevant. It's about computer hacking. It's about robots. It's about our trust for data. And we'll show you the trailer later. But what we did was, instead of saying, oh, I'm going to give all of the stuff that I don't want to do, like all the rotoscoping, all the paint, I'm going to just give it to these students to do because they'll get it for free. No, that was definitely not the approach I went. I remember meeting people like Roy. I met other students, and these students following Sync end up working at other companies, which was probably the most proudest moment as a film producer. I'm like, wow, these guys actually took something from the film. And you've got to remember that when you're asking someone to help you, usually for no money or very little money, and their time equals money. You've got to remember that. Time is a very precious commodity that that people tend to forget. So even if someone's doing it for free, you're using up their time. So the least you could do is give them the respect by coming in with the idea and prepared. So I remember saying, I'm going to give this 3D artist this sequence where you get to build this drone, and he was loving it. And he goes, I get to show off my modeling, I get to show off my texturing, and then we work together with Scape and saying, the syllables on your courses, are you teaching texturing, shading, which obviously you were, and and Andy helped find the students. Go, look, these students are really hungry. They're in their final year. They're going to leave. They want something in their reel, and that is the way to approach it in a very collaborative way. Don't just offshoot the stuff you don't want to do to people just to get it done for free. Collaborate with them, and most of the time they come up with ideas that I didn't even think of. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And I remember the sequence that you worked on, where you added all the graphics.
Yeah, the motion graphics.
And I remember the question you asked was, what was the point? What is the point of these graphics? And it was to help tell the audience that the robot is thinking and is tracking and looking for the bike. And then Roy went off and did his thing. So always prepare, respect the people that are given time, but try and give them something that they take away with, rather than you just taking everything.
Yeah.
It's
Just
good advice.
one quick thing. Some of the terms that you're hearing today, you might not be that familiar with them, and I think in the workshop we've got like a bit of a glossary, haven't we?
Sure.
Of
That's
certain terms, and a lot of it, like the guy said at the start, there's a lot of lingo, there's a lot of specific language used in post-production visual effects, but don't let it put you off. It's just new words basically.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
And also ask. Don't pretend you know what it is.
Yeah.
I think that is the
Totally.
biggest. That's the biggest lesson because
We've all done that. I've done it. You know, you're too embarrassed. Like, oh God, if I don't know
What the hell
if I
is
don't
that?
know what an alpha channel is by now, it's too late to ask. You know.
always ask.
Yeah.
Because when you work with someone,
Don't
and
ask
you
me
do
what it is.
What is alpha
when you
channel?
work with someone and you do know what you're talking about, I don't know loads about this industry, loads. But like the bit that I know. So like when I speak to someone about it, if they don't know, it's always obvious to me that they don't know. So don't pretend, just ask. The best people, juniors coming up, are the people that say, "What is this? What is that? What is this? How do I do this?"
Not afraid
How
to
does that?
ask.
Not afraid
Yes.
to ask because people who care about the craft that we all do, they want to share it because it takes up so much time.
It's better to say I don't know than
Yeah.
say yeah I know and
Yeah.
then go what does it mean? You're like oh
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Can I just add one other tiny little thing? And it might not be the right time to say this actually, but we're all very aware that there's a lot of boys on the stage here today, right? You know, there was meant to be a couple of female panelists who had to pull out actually. You know, there are women that work in this industry as well.
A lot.
You know, and it's becoming more so. And there's a lot of activity at the moment about trying to pull in more women and people who come from other kind of parts of society who might not normally, you know, people with disabilities. There's lots of, as you know.
Can I mention the name of Sarah Bennett,
Yeah,
by
yeah,
the
please.
way, who actually I work for and with. She got a Best Visual Effect award, so the
Oscar.
Oscar, yeah. And she's only the second woman in the entire world to have done that. She works, she's British, she works not too far from here at Milk VFX. And that was 2 years ago for Ex Machina. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah,
those.
it's a movie we know. Who's seen Ex Machina? Show fancy.
So
These guys keep up.
So girls, claim your rights for, as you said, to access to
Yeah.
Yeah.
this
It's a good point.
profession. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, we wouldn't want people getting the wrong idea about where this industry is going. Okay, this is just
it's for everyone.
I mean, it's definitely
You know what I mean?
been male dominated in the
Oh,
past,
yeah.
and white male, classic sort of stuff. It has been, but believe me, there's lots of action that's being taken now to promote these jobs across the whole sector to as the most the most diverse group of people that's possible to get involved, because
Right.
that's where the creativity comes from.
okay. Well, we've got a little bit of time for people's questions. Has anybody got a question? Okay, so there's a couple of hands going up. All right. Frank's got a mic, so he's going to bring one. We'll work our way from the front back. Oh no, we'll actually go there, Frank. You do your thing. Right, he knows what he's doing.
Hi guys. I think one of the biggest questions for me is actually in production. Like, I think that's what's scary when you kind of think of visual effects. And what do we need to kind of do to make sure the visual effects can be done in post? Like, what do we need to do on set? You know, with the green screen, is it the tracking dots or what is it?
That's a
Yeah.
that's a massive
It's a
question.
massive question.
It is.
Massive question.
Clement, I mean, these guys are.
Can I go first?
Yeah,
I'll keep it
please.
short and I leave for you guys to do the rest. My simple answer to that is talk to the visual effects guys. Talk to them. Say, listen, I'm going to shoot this shot. Here are my storyboards. You know, here's some tests I've done. You know, I want to stick this thing here. How do I go about approaching this? Talk to them. Don't wait, or don't feel like, oh, I better not approach the visual effects guys now, or they might charge me, they might bill me, or I don't want to get involved too early. No, get them now, because it will save you a ton of money later. And it really is a conversation. You know, when I was a VFX supervisor, I spent a lot of my time spending time with the directors, with the cinematographer, with the art director, the production guys, figuring out how to place, like for the art department, where to put props, you know, and I didn't like the idea of putting tracking markers everywhere because we have to paint them out. So we used loads of hard, sharp edge corners, like tables, and we knew that that's going to be in shot and the camera's going to be a little bit floaty. We knew we could track that. And they don't know that until they have a conversation. So have the conversation.
It's about bridging that gap. I think there's a couple of points in the whole production process where there's a few little holes, and we've tried to address this in some of the stuff that we've done together actually in some of our courses. And there is a gap between production and post sometimes. It's almost like production finishes and then all of a sudden it's a whole new group of people, yeah? It's about just putting a little bridge over that gap, and it's all about communication really.
Yeah.
It's just keeping dialogues open, channels open, including as many people in that conversation as you can. You might come up against a bit of opposition from some old school types who still don't really like visual effects very much.
It's very
but that's
important, I
dying out.
guess, to be very prepared, to know exactly what's going to be, what needs to be shot. If you have a green screen, make sure like you said, markers and everything.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
In a sense, when you reach production, VFX can be improvised, and they are. But best if it's planned, as you said. A VFX shot is a bit of a puzzle that you have to solve. In fact, there are many ways to solve a VFX shot. You can approach it, solve it with different technique methods. I'm thinking about something I'm doing kind of as a training very often. Maybe you know Orphan Black, the
Sure.
clones.
Yeah.
If you look at the behind the scenes, they go about many different techniques to do that very same thing, which is cloning the girl. You can use motion control, you can use green screen, you can use doubles, then you paint out. So if you only think about that once you're on set, and again, sometimes that's the way it is, but it's a bit too late in many cases. So you're better off that's why we have VFX supervisor, because alongside with all the team, the director, the cinematographer as well, they will try to devise the best way to go about that shot.
Yeah.
Because every shot's completely different.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
absolutely,
no one size fits all
yeah.
solution, but the idea is to take each shot, analyze it for what it is, and look at the different tools and pick the best mix of stuff to actually approach that. That's what I'm getting. Is that okay? It was like, I thought it was fabulous, frankly, but it's good work, you guys. With a question down here, so thanks, mate. So he's going to bring you a mic there.
I was wondering how you keep up to date with all the new kind of software. Are you kind of self-taught in the sense that if the new software comes out, you YouTube it and work out yourself how to use that software, or do you think it's better to go on a course? But then obviously courses cost money, so it's kind of knowing how to.
It's a very, very good question. I
would just say,
I think we know what Andy's kind of point of view is going to be on this one, right? But we've got a bunch of people who are artists out there, so we'll get Andy's point. But what do you guys do? How do you guys keep up? Because this is a fast-moving business, right?
So fast.
Yeah. Right.
So fast.
All right. So how do you keep up?
YouTube.
YouTube websites like FX Guide.
Tutorials.
Yeah.
I think once you're at a
Tutorials.
certain level, right, it's like there's like with the new software, often there's normally just a few extra things that have been added to Maya, for example. They might change the interface a bit sometimes, but generally speaking, it's like once you've got to a level, it's just certain new techniques. But to get to that level, that high level first, there are certain things that you
I think courses to kind of really kind of get yourself going and get yourself up there. But I think that what's really interesting about this, and when I talk to people about this, is that actually most people who are out there doing this and working on these fast-paced things, what they're doing is a little bit every day.
Yeah.
They're just they just stay on top of it. They read a few blogs, they keep up with some trade press, and they do a little every day. And that seems to me to be what the secret is of kind of keeping up, as opposed to kind of doing your thing and ignoring the world for 6 months and then trying to keep up. You do a little every day, and you just progress with the industry.
I think as well, don't be kind of fooled. Don't fool yourself kind of mentally that if you follow a tutorial on YouTube, for example, like when I said earlier on, I started doing After Effects and on Video Copilot. I don't know if people know Video Copilot. But I started doing loads of that stuff, and then I kind of realised that what I was doing was just replicating the motions that he was doing on screen. I wasn't creating any sort of understanding or relationship between me, the software, and the effects I was creating. So if someone said to me, "Can you do this?" I'd be like, "Well, I've not seen a tutorial for that, so no." So I think you're right. You've got to kind of do lots of bits from lots of different places. There's forums and there's people that can help you out. Don't be afraid to ask people.
People in the industry really you can come to a new studio where they're very expert about a certain tool. That's what happened to me now.
But it's like people want to share this information with you, because if they come up with a solution and they know with a little bit of inspiration, wow, I solved it like this, they want to tell you, it's like, look, you'll never believe what I did. You know what I mean? They want to share that with you.
Can I just add, I think it's a bit of a false question, because what matters is not the tool at all. Nuke better than After Effects or Fusion. Have a look at Fusion, it's free. By the way.
It's old.
And it's not base. Anyway, it doesn't really matter, because what matters is the fundamentals of image making, of moving images. So stuff like red, green, and blue, RGB channels, alpha, depth channels, match move, sort of tracking, stuff like that, photogrammetry, that remains because it's the science of it. So the science is more important than the tool. Even if you think, I don't know if you've heard about light field technology, which is camera, regular camera, but on top of that, thin camera merged with 3D scan. So you can acquire the 3D information of what you actually acquire as an image. So at the same time, 25 frames per second. So that's the new thing. It's not ready available. It's more like prototype. Well, it's amazing. It looks like, wow, we're going to do crazy stuff. But what's behind that, it's exactly what we use today.
Sure.
Like think about photogrammetry. Photogrammetry, the math of that is trigonometry. It's been invented 2,000 years ago.
Oh, maths.
But that is what matters, really, fundamentally. Like the tool, whether it's nuke, flame, whatever.
Yeah.
And the art as well, right?
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, like
And being an artist, right?
like 5-10 years ago, none of us on stage would have had any idea how to get involved with any of the VR stuff, which as young filmmakers, you will start to get involved in all of that stuff. But guess what? That will continue for all of us to update our abilities and techniques and all of that sort of stuff. So the industry moves really fast. So if you kind of lynch yourself on like a particular bit of kit or a particular bit of software, like I was saying before, don't wait for that laptop or that camera. Just kind of get involved.
Yeah.
But track the science, don't track the tool. It's more
Yeah, the techniques. And just really got to quickly answer the question as well. Like Clement said, it's not just the tool set. I learned a lot of my techniques because I had problems on every single shot. Every single project I worked on, every single show, whether it's TV, short film, commercials, there were problems. Like 1 week I would solve this problem of stabilizing this shot. I'm like, yes, I'm like the master. Next week I get a new project. Oh my God, is this other problem now? I've got this green screen issue. Or the client wants to do something really bizarre because they've seen it in another film. And you're like, how do I figure that out? And as I'm figuring out that problem, I'm learning. I'm going on the forums. I'm talking to my colleagues. I'm reaching out. And really lastly, when I worked on a film called The Dark Knight, I don't know if you guys seen
The Dark Knight?
Yeah.
Are you really going to see it?
I know.
Have you might have heard of this dude. They call him Batman.
Whatever. Anyway. And I really, really wanted to work on that film. And I was hired as a previs compositor where I would take previs, which is like, blocked animation, and I would take 5K IMAX footage, and my job was to line it up for the director to watch it. I was using something called Shake. This is like a really old bit of tool. It's a really old compositing tool, very similar to Nuke, but way less advanced. And I remember they were saying, we have to figure out a way of getting this image rendered onto a big 5K picture. Bear in mind, our computers and our software only had a 2K resolution, which is this small. They want it this big. And they're like, we have to figure out scripting. Hans, can you do scripting? I'm like, yeah, I can do scripting. I thought, fuck, I've got to learn how to to do scripting really quickly. I went on the forum, I found up all my friends, and I learned how to create a script that enabled us to use 5K footage as what you call a proxy, render it out overnight, and then show it to the director and then back again. I would never have learnt scripting if I didn't have that problem to solve. So it's all through problem solving.
Yeah, which is why I hate that visual effects in many ways, and that's why I'm not an artist, because I haven't got the temperament to fix problems. I can't stand it. Yeah. Can I just say one thing quickly?
Go on then.
One of the best pieces of advice I ever heard actually from a recruiter from Framestore, and in terms of that thing of reaching out into the industry, there's always that gap, isn't there? It's like you're young filmmakers doing your thing, right? And then there's people working in the industry getting paid for it, and you think, how do I? Now, she said to me, no one ever gets in touch with the artists. Like on LinkedIn these days, there's so many opportunities. The artists are kind of, sort of, quite often stuck in a room, doing their thing. No one talks to them. If you can, what I would say, it's true, isn't it? Go and see a film that you like. Yeah. Think about what you liked in that film. Work out which people worked on that from which department. Track them down on LinkedIn and send them a message. You'd be surprised that you might very well get a response. You've got much more chance of getting a response from the artist than if you tried to get in touch with the director
or the company,
or even the recruiters. It's quite amazing. So that's top tip for you, that is.
All right, okay. I think we've got time for one last question before we move on. Did someone else have one more question? It got answered. Okay, fella. Does anybody else have another one? That's good if you haven't, because we're literally out of time. All right? Okay, good. Okay. So look, you guys, it's been really, really enlightening. Thank you so much for coming along. We really appreciate it, right? Yeah. Show them your appreciation then. Come on. All right. So listen, it's Andrew Brassington, George Rockliffe, Roy Peker, Clement Gharini, right? Did I say that right? And Has the Law. Give them another round of applause.